For those of you who don't know, I was detained by Customs and Border Patrol, one of the largest progressive voices in the country, getting detained by the Trump Gestapo. And let me tell you, folks, the TikTokers that talked about being detained, they were right.
I posted a video a couple days ago talking about how I got detained as a United States citizen born and raised. I am very political on my accounts. I literally have a clothing brand called Trump for the Dump, making meme shirts of Trump, and then it's a nonprofit, so we donate to organizations that he's defunding. I also want to say that I post on my Instagram stories and my TikTok a lot of things anti-Trump and anti-MAGA, whatever you want to call it. So that is a red flag for them.
That's right. What we have here is people getting detained at the border, interrogated. Could say questioned, but as you'll see, it's more like an interrogation. People who are public, as he said, one of the biggest progressive political voices. He has a big streaming presence pretty much everywhere, and TikTokers are also getting stopped. And these are American citizens. These are not immigrants. They might have immigration in their family, but they're born Americans being stopped at the border, interrogated. It seems like intimidation of free speech, people who speak against the Trump regime. This is what's happening, and so this is of particular interest to me. I am JJ. Welcome back to the pod. We're going to get into this today. I think it's really important. This goes to free speech and, maintaining free speech in the US, as they talk about here, as Hasan talks about. He thought this might happen, so let's get into what they're saying here. I think it's fascinating, but it's also very dangerous. I'm an Australian and a New Zealand citizen. I was considering going to the US at some point, but obviously these days I'm not considering it anymore. I'm not intimidated by it, but I'm just not sure what would happen making videos like this, the videos that I have made being public. I just don't know what would happen at this point. But New Zealand and Australia are close allies of the US, much like Canada in a way, but obviously further away. So let's get into this. I'll react to it and see what they say. I think this is an important thing that's happening in the world.
It's very obvious that they knew exactly who the I was. I think they were being cordial because they wanted me to say something that was incriminating and say something that was enough to justify further detention from that point on. And let me tell you, they certainly did do that. He's like, oh, what are you doing in Chicago? What do you do as a job? And I was like, I'm a Twitch streamer. And he's like, well, since you mentioned that you were a Twitch streamer, what kind of things do you stream about? So I was just like, yeah, I play video games, but I also do current events, sometimes drama, internet. And he's like, oh, do you talk about, since you mentioned that, do you talk about the news? And I was like, yeah, I talk about the news. And he kept saying, okay, so when you talk about the news, do you talk about the war? And I was like, what do you mean by that? He's like, do you talk about Trump? And that was the first time where I was like, what the is this question? Like, I literally straight up told him, I was like, why are you asking me this? Like, the dude asked so many insane questions. I just need you to understand, nothing I've done online is illegal as of now, if that makes sense. Now, laws may change in the future and they might actually start prosecuting speech, which I do fear is the goal of this administration.
Yes, I think that's the goal of the administration too. And mind you, leading up during the campaign, Trump was talking about free speech, talking about the Biden administration, how they, weren't about free speech and it was authoritarian. But look what's happening. This is just over 100 days into this administration, and they're stopping American citizens at the border, asking them questions, trying to find some way to perhaps detain them for longer because of their speech. So people need to know about it. This is why people need to know about it. Even if you voted for Trump, you need to realize that this is happening, and this could just be the start here. Intimidation is something that we hear about in authoritarian regimes. You might have heard like a bloggers getting arrested, podcasters getting arrested, and these things, and you think, oh, that's really bad. But look what's happening right now in the US.
So far, everything I've done is fully protected under the First Amendment, okay? And none of these questions are actually valid questions to ask. But I wanted to see like what they were trying to take from this conversation. I saw no reason to hold back on certain things. So I said, I don't like Trump. And I was like, what are you going to do? It's protected by the First Amendment. I don't like Trump. Yes, right? Like, I was like, I'm not fond of him. I don't like him. He said he was going to end the wars. He hasn't ended the wars. for me, they wanted to conduct an investigation about my involvement with Hamas and my involvement with the Houthis, or they suspected my involvement with Hezbollah. Straight up. That's literally what this conversation was about. And it's not even a joke. Like, they literally tried to get something out of me that I think they could use to basically detain me permanently, which is insane because there is no direct connection or direct involvement. I told him, like, I don't like Donald Trump. And I was like, so why are you guys doing this? And he's like, oh, it's just like routine. It's a routine process. I was like, it doesn't feel too routine.
So understand, they knew who he was. This is not random. Even though they said it's routine, they knew exactly who it was. They knew that he had a massive audience and they wanted to do this as a process of intimidation. They knew he was going to talk about it. So it's really like spreading the word that this is happening and to intimidate people. It may have the opposite effect. I hope it does have the opposite effect, that people can exercise their free speech if they're in the US and outside of it too.
Basically, my big fear from the entire situation was, like, if they were to ask for my phone. Not that there's anything incriminating on my phone, but I don't want the federal government inside of my phone. Like, it's not your business. You know what I mean? It's none of your business. It's a goddamn.
As we'll see, the TikToker that was detained, they did look through her phone. She didn't really know what to do. She was scared, and they took her phone and they looked all through it.
Free country. Like, there's privacy laws for this country. He kept saying stuff like, do you like Hamas? Like, do you support Hamas? Do you think Hamas is a resistance group? Do you think Hamas is a terrorist group or a resistance group? Like, he just kept asking over and over again, right? I kept saying a couple different things. One, in terms of like Israel and all the wars, I was like, I'm on the side of civilians. I want the endless bloodshed to end. I am a pacifist. I want wars to end. I just kept repeating that over and over again. Every single time he asked me a question, I just kept repeating that. And every single time he asked me a question, a leading question about Hamas, I kept saying the United States State Department recognizes Hamas as a terrorist organization. So he just kept asking me over and over again, like Hamas, Houthis, all the trying to be like, oh, do you support them? Do you like them? Like, what do you think about them? Which I thought was insane, because the reality of the matter is, up until this very moment, if you were to say, as an American citizen, you stand 10 toes down with Hamas or you stand 10 toes down with the Houthis or whatever they can't deny you entry into the country for that. This is complete.
They know that too. They know what free speech is. They know what people are allowed to say, even if they don't like people being anti-Trump and anti the policy, anti-foreign policy of the current administration. I mean, there's plenty going on during the Biden administration, being critical, providing dissent. It seems like the Trump administration is trying to crack down. This is what this is, a crackdown on speech, on public voices like this, and they want it to spread. I mean, they're not cracking down, as far as I know, on the tech companies saying you need to suppress this, but this is one way of doing it, and it could be effective. It's obviously happening to multiple people. There have been reports of quite a lot of this things going on, including him, who's one of the biggest voices there. Imagine if Joe Rogan got stopped at the border and interrogated like this.
Completely protected under First Amendment laws, and therefore, I don't understand what the reason why we're having this conversation is. And I kept saying that over and over again, at which point he just like kind of gave up. The first stuff was just illegal for him to ask me those questions and completely idiotic and ridiculous. And I think they did it because they know who the fuck I am and they wanted to put the fear of God into me, not knowing that I'm a stubborn piece of. And, that's not going to work at all, right? One of the largest progressive voices in the country getting detained by the Trump Gestapo. They're straight up fascist at this point. I know that under normal circumstances, I'm supposed to say, I want a lawyer. I don't want to talk to you. But nothing I'm doing is illegal. And I also wanted to see what would happen. The reality of the matter is, one, I'm profoundly privileged. Okay. Remember, I'm a public person. And also, I have enough money to be able to fight back against this sort of thing. And they know who the I am. So obviously, the reason for why they're doing that is, I think, to try to create an environment of fear, to try to get people like myself, or at least like others that would be in my shoes that don't have that same level of security, to shut the up. And for me, I'm going to use the privilege that I have in that moment to try and see what the they're doing, okay? Because every single thing that they ask me, trying to get me to say something like, oh, I support Hamas or whatever, is literally not allowed. Like, what the do you mean? Like, why is this denying me entry into the country of my birth? Like this
Again, I mean, they know who he was. They know he had a big audience, and they asked him these questions. They knew he was going to talk about it. There's nothing about this that's not intimidation and trying to intimidate more people, let it go out. I mean, I'm talking about it now, but I'm hoping that the reverse will happen and people will, talk about this more rather than less about what the Trump administration is doing. I talk about Elon a lot. He's right in there. He is a free speech absolutist. What does he think about this kind of thing?
is my birthright. I'm an American citizen. You can't just stop me at the border and be like, what's your opinion on Donald Trump? You're not allowed to enter the nation. That basically ended with me asking, like, so what is the purpose of this? Like, am I being detained? And because I was like, you know that I'm going to talk about this. I was like, a lot of people have talked about this like detainment structure. And he was like, yeah, people really exaggerate how these things go. And I was like, well, it is not a great situation to be in, like, but you're not technically detained. I was like, so I can leave? Like, I asked him, I was like, am I detained? And he's like, no. And I was like, all right, so what's the purpose of this entire situation? I can just walk out right now. And basically, when I said that, the interview ended. And he basically said, you can figure out what not to do so that this doesn't happen again. And I suspect the what not to do is just don't be a political commentator that speaks about American foreign policy, which is not something I'm planning on stopping. Why did I tell you about this?
So that's just a form of intimidation. He didn't even say what not to do, but it seems pretty obvious. They go through this interrogation and, let him go. Well, he did say that he should have asked that earlier, and they probably would have said, you're not being detained, and he would have been able to go. Obviously don't feel like it in that situation where you're led to a room by yourself with officers that are asking you lots of questions. It's not a situation, if you don't have a lawyer there or whatever, that you feel like you could go, but maybe that's a good thing to say in that situation.
Entire experience. Like, because in my mind, I thought maybe I shouldn't reveal this stuff because I think like the goal here is to put fear into people's hearts, to have a chilling effect on speech, that like the government is unafraid of intimidating you in illegal ways. Okay. The government is now officially willing and able to intimidate you for your speech. That is a direct violation of the First Amendment. I'm no First Amendment auditor, but the reality of the matter is that as of this administration, they are totally willing and able to actually come after you for your speech.
That's right. It does seem like that's what they're doing. And it's under the guise of saying people voted for this. We're doing this because it's about getting illegal immigrants out. And so they're already pushing the boundaries. I did a video about them wanting to suspend habeas corpus. So that's another constitutional right. So now they're attacking free speech working with the richest person in the world who says he's a free speech absolutist, but there's so many examples where he's just not. This is a front, the free speech stuff that they say that they support when they so obviously do not. And this is a prime example of it. And we're only just over 100 days in, pushing the boundaries of what they think that they can do.
Stupid and silly this situation has gotten. Now, of course, does this stop me from saying whatever the I want to say? Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. But the reason why I wanted to talk about it was to give you more insight into what the government is doing and to speak out against this sort of stuff, because I do have a position of privilege here, and I want to make sure that like you should know your rights, that you should not be fearful, and you should not worry, especially if you're an American citizen, that these guys are going to come after you and like arrest you or something. Okay? But it is pretty wild, I will say. It was actually shocking that these guys totally grabbed me, knowing exactly who I am, knowing that I will most likely talk about this, with the hopes that I think that they would at least stoke some fear and threaten people like myself, and then also threaten others as a byproduct of this. I hope this doesn't discourage others from speaking out as well. They don't have the right to do this, okay? They do not have a right to do this. I didn't know if this was going to be a moment where I was going to be the precedent-setting court case, you know what I mean? Like, that is definitely a worry that I have, for sure. It's something that I think about, because eventually, somewhere along the line, someone is going to be the precedent-setting court case of whether or not someone gets prosecuted for speech and speech alone. Because The line right now is material support. And that line is being blurred by this current administration with Mahmoud Khalil, with Mohsen Mahdawi, with Rumeysa Öztürk, right? Some of those people have been released at this point, but Mahmoud Khalil is still very much in detention. And according to Marco Rubio, the argument that they are trying to use is that speech is material support, right? They are actively trying to blur the boundaries between what constitutes material support to try to make it seem as though things that would be protected under First Amendment would be considered material support.
So remember, one of those people wrote an op-ed in the Columbia student newspaper, and that was what they took her off the street for. Masked ICE agents. She was a visiting student visa, masked ICE agents, apparently no badges that you could see in the video, just taking her off the streets. And it turned out that it was based on an op-ed she wrote, a speech again.
Any sort of opinion is considered material support. And that's
I posted a video a couple days ago.
Okay, so this is the TikToker talking about a similar situation in Miami this time. His was in Chicago. He was going to be speaking. He did speak at the journalism school at the university there, I think. And this was in Miami, so a different part of the country. You know, there's obviously some sort of policy because it's happening all over the place. It's not just an isolated event at this point. It's happening.
Talking about how I got detained as a United States citizen, born and raised. I was coming back from Spain. I was in Spain for about a month or so. Here's my global entry card because a lot of you guys don't believe that I did have global entry. Yes, I do have global entry, and this still happens to me. I still got detained. I went through the global entry line. They scanned my eyes. I get asked questions by another officer. He asked me where I'm coming from and what I did for work. I answered TikTok, as I do have other accounts that I am very social on that have thousands of followers. Then he asked me to step into this box looking thing. It's about, 3 sides. And then he told me another officer will come and grab me. That officer then took me to a room, which I did insert a photo of, and I will give you guys again here, which this is the first room I was taken to. And that's where I was asked my father's citizenship status. My father is an American citizen. He has been for the last 25 years. Before I was born, I did not have the answers to any of those questions because I would not know. And then they transferred me to another room. That other room, the officer asked me what I did for work, exactly why I was traveling. I said the same thing. I did TikTok, and that's why I was traveling, and I wanted to stay there for longer. Another officer was escorting me down to the escalators past Border Patrol. Then there's rooms, and that's where they asked me to provide my social media accounts for them to go through my TikTok, my Snapchat, my Instagram, my Facebook, as well as show them how much I was making daily on TikTok and show them the deposits that were being made on TikTok.
Wow, so they're asking her how much money she makes from her TikTok account. She is anti-Trump, and proudly so. She sells t-shirts, selling t-shirts with anti-Trump. This is all okay, should be okay. Any kind of political dissent. I mean, during the last administration, so many people were criticizing Biden, all of that stuff, and suddenly it's not okay.
Again, why I was traveling. It's the same questions all over again. And that is where they will go through your luggage. They dumped out all my things on the counter, and they were asking me if I was the only person that had packed my bags. Of course, I said yes. But it was the worst search I've ever seen in my entire life. They dumped everything out. They didn't open anything. I had pill bottles that were, in colored containers because that's how my medication came. They didn't even open them. So I don't understand what they even searched. And
so they did a search that wasn't really a search. It was for another purpose that they stopped her. The same thing for intimidation. Will it help to suppress the anti-Trump sentiment if it builds up, suppressing free speech as they do in authoritarian regimes in a number of ways? It's a little bit different in the US so far because free speech, you can say what you want, or can you?
Again, I was asked the same questions about what I do for work, why I was traveling, for how long I was traveling, and then more again about my father. Basically, underneath the Miami airport, it's extremely scary. Keep in mind, I am the only person I see. There is nobody coming down the escalators with me, and there was also nobody else held where I was at. After about 2.5 hours to 3 hours, and during this entire thing, I was finally let go after telling them no, that I had no plans to leave the United States. I was, again, handed to around 5 different officers. I'm not sure if I made that clear, and put in around 3 to 4 different rooms. I believe 4. I am very political on my accounts. I literally have a clothing brand called Trump for the Dump, making meme shirts of Trump, and then it's a nonprofit, so we donate to organizations that he's defunding. I also want to say that I post on my Instagram stories and my TikTok a lot of things anti-Trump and anti-MAGA whatever you want to call it. So that is a red flag for them. So yeah, my Instagram wasn't completely clean. They didn't do anything about it. They kind of just took my phone and searched through everything. I don't really know what they were looking for. I don't have more answers. I complied with every single thing that they asked. I didn't give them a hard time about anything because I'm more scared than anything.
I bet you were scared. I mean, it's a scary situation. And again, just for intimidation purposes. Also, what Hasan was saying there that I didn't put in the video, that adversaries of his podcast, people speaking against each other, rivalries in the podcasting space, in the streaming space. He said they ask questions that people like that would have talked about online. What's dangerous about this is adversaries like this, political adversaries, cheering this kind of thing on, even if you're a MAGA Trump people cheering this on. It's just not right to be cheering this on, saying it's okay because it's not us, right? This is a very important point here. Now, if you haven't yet, check out the politics channel. Now, I chose not to put this on the politics channel. I might talk about this on there as well. If you haven't subscribed there yet, I'm going to put a link in the pinned comment and in the description as well. And this appears on Spotify too, so I'll put that in the description over there if you want to check that out. So part of it is to have more than one here in case anything happens to this one in the future. But yes, obviously, I'm interested in this topic, very interested. Right now, I'm going to put a link on screen to a related video. Do go and see that now if you want to, and a subscribe link. If you're not subscribed yet, do subscribe. And thanks for watching this one, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.